I feel just sometimes, I get 0-0s can happen, but that game today wasn't a game. That's not a Premier League game of football. It's not representative of the Premier League. It's not representative of Manchester City now they've been over the last few years. And seeing them walk around at the end together, sort of clapping, sort of shaking each other's hands and smiling with each other. Where was the disappointment that they played like that in a game or that they'd drawn 0-0? This is an exceptional team with one of the greatest coaches of all time. And there was no intensity whatsoever from them.
Hit the like and the share button, people. Gary Neville here, calling out the intensity, the aggression, the personality, the character in the Manchester derby yesterday. And I understand where he's coming from. I wanted to see a little bit more bite. I wanted to see a little bit more oomph. I get Man United. All our regs are going into that Europa League basket. Some will say that's not an excuse, but I get it. The same as Arsenal when they played Everton at the weekend. I get their minds on the Real Madrid tie. That makes perfect sense. But Gary Neville here, we can't forget what he said previously. And this is where I think pundits, I feel, do the game a disservice. 1 week they want A, the next week they want B, and they don't deliver any of the nuance. Now, in fairness to Gary Neville, maybe it's because it's TV and it's short format. There isn't the time to delve into more detail like we can do on the podcast online. Or I could be giving him the benefit of the doubt incorrectly there. This is just speaking out of both sides of his mouth. I think he means what he said today. If I'm being honest, I think he means this. I think he feels that games, especially derbies, especially between rivals, need more needle, need more aggression. He doesn't want to see happy, clappy, cuddling. Oh, his words were they're going to go out for a roast dinner at the end of the game. In fact, let's see exactly what he said again, just so I'm not misrepresenting him.
Over the last few years, and seeing them walk around at the end together, sort of clapping, sort of shaking each other's hands and smiling with each other. Where was the disappointment that they played like that in a game or that they draw?
Now, this was Gary Neville in one of the last real entertaining games that had needle and fight in it, that got fans of both clubs rattled, excited. It had rivals on the outside of the game and sort of nobody, Man United fans, Chelsea fans, people on the outside watching going, oh, I like a little bit of this. This is what Gary Neville had to say after the game.
Gabriel and what he did to Haaland. It happened to me here, actually. Not here, it was at Highbury many, many years ago where a player came up and screamed in my face. We actually won the game 4-2 that day. I actually don't like it. I think it's a bit disrespectful. I get the fact that all Haaland's the sort of pantomime villain here today, but there's something about it that I didn't... I was many things, but I never did that. I just felt there's something about that I thought, it made me feel a little bit uneasy.
So he felt uneasy when Gabriel runs past Haaland and celebrates in his ear. And this is my problem with the mainstream media. 1 minute, they're calling out personality and character. They're calling out aggression. And by the way, I don't think you can have a game that has intensity, has bite, has fight, and then also lacks what you saw there from Gabriel towards Haaland and from Haaland towards Gabriel earlier on in the season when he threw the ball at his back of his head, which, by the way, the pundits enjoyed. So I think for me, what this highlights more than anything, yes, the Manchester derby it lacked the intensity, it lacked the excitement that we all wanted as football spectators, but it highlights that when Gary Neville invariably talks about Arsenal, the man allows his hatred and his bias to shine through. And I know what you rivals are going to say, but Terry is allowed to. I don't think professional pundits should be allowing their bias to come through. He's paid millions of pounds a year, which is paid for by the people that pay for Sky Sports, who spend thousands of pounds a year having it as an option on their televisions, or at least hundreds of pounds a year, if not thousands, to watch the football. I think the punditry must be better. For you, a fan, to do it, absolutely. Crack on. You're a supporter. You don't necessarily need to be consistent. But for a professional pundit, 1 minute they want intensity, the next minute they're absolutely slamming it when players are doing it. I don't understand at all.
Let's start at Goodison Park, shall we? And a big decision for referee Darren England, who awarded Everton a penalty. Dermot, this looked a very soft challenge from Miles Lewis-Skelly on Jack Harrison.
Obviously,
You
I
always
can't
say
tell
as
it.
well to
And
look for the players'
By the way,
reaction,
people, if you haven't hit the like button yet, get it done. Make sure you're subscribing, people. Let's do it.
which I look at with Jack Harrison there. Mikel Arteta said he'd watched it 15 times, says it was never a penalty. What do you think?
I think if you're going to give the forward a foul, I think the more foul occurs outside the area, if it is a foul, he lets go of him. I don't think it's a penalty.
Excellent. Right, let's go home.
Do you know what's crazy, right? I criticize Dermot Gallagher a lot. That they're honest, concise, easy to understand and direct. There was a foul potentially outside the box. There wasn't one in the box. Shouldn't have been a penalty. That's it. So when I keep hearing people say, well, VAR can't get involved, there was no clear and obvious error, that is a cop-out now. It's become a cop-out. We know it was a clear and obvious error. The statements made by the PGMOL in 2021 when Mike Riley was running it spoke about a massively high threshold, and they had to be proper fouls that were given. Howard Webb doubled down on this in 2003, where he echoed this sentiment. The fouls have to be proper, clear-cut for them to be penalties. There was the precedent where they could have quite easily have turned around and overturned the decision. But my focus isn't about that. I think it's been proven. Everyone with a brain knows it wasn't a penalty. Arsenal in that moment were harshly done by. And I think for me, what's really important, though, is the targeting of Miles Lewis-Skelly. For me, I'm very uncomfortable about this. Now, I know there'll be people that will make accusations that I'm virtue signaling and I'm white knighting, but I'm uncomfortable about it. And you can call me whatever pejoratives you want. You can do the ad hominem attacks, but there is something sinister going on towards Miles Lewis-Skelly, in my personal and humble opinion. And this article here is almost the epitome of it. This was produced just before the football returned. That says Miles Lewis-Skelly's secret weapon is a Jonah Lomu-like handoff. Now, I need to explain for the context. I can't show the footage because of copyright. Just go and watch Jonah Lomu's handoffs, how vicious and violent they are. But that's in rugby, where it was absolutely acceptable to make those comparisons, coupled with still hearing over the international break pundits, media outlets, commentators speak of the 2 red cards that Lewis-Skelly has had, how he needs to be careful, how he has to be humble. Jamie Carragher lie about the reason that he wasn't in the main dressing room with the rest of his teammates was because Arteta's really trying to keep him humble and keep his feet on the ground. All the questions about his family, who are the people that are wrapped around him, does he have good role models in his life? So many nasty undertones, so many nasty accusations, and the picture has been painted that he is maybe not so far as to say a thug, but at the very least, there is an aggressive, there is a sort of dangerous or violent element to his game. Jonah Lomu handoff, 2 red cards already in his young career, raking tackles. Does he have the right temperament? Does he have the right attitude? This has been set by some media pundits, and the mainstream media have run with it. That, for me, is the biggest component into why this penalty was given, and it's the biggest talking point surrounding it that is being ignored. And for me, I love football in this country. I've hated how certain players have been treated by our media. Raheem Sterling was one of the standout examples of this. The hate campaign against him from when he left Liverpool until really his career fizzled out. Now that he isn't a top player anymore, nobody cares. But this young man saw his personality challenged. He's greedy. He's leaving Liverpool for all the wrong reasons when he wasn't. His performances were played down. His tattoos were spoken about. And I stand by what I said back then now. I didn't want to see Harry Kane or Wayne Rooney or Declan Rice treated as badly. I wanted to see Raheem Sterling treated with more respect, more dignity. The headlines when he bought his mum a house versus Phil Foden were night and day in difference. Again, I don't want Phil Foden to be ridiculed or slammed or brought down. I want Raheem Sterling to be risen up. I am just fearful that we are witnessing the same thing here with Miles Lewis-Skelly. false narratives being created, ridiculous articles being put out there, trying to create a picture that he is something that he is not. And for such a young man to be treated this way, it's an abomination. And what we saw at the weekend was a penalty that, in my personal opinion, comes off the back of the Miles Lewis Skelly agenda, comes off the back of the undertones, the unwarranted, completely unnecessary articles that have been produced about this young man. Now, I know some people will say, Terry, you haven't got to defend. It's not about defending Arsenal. Please don't drop to that level of argument. It's ridiculous. We're talking about a young man with the world at his feet that is being accused of things that he is not. I think every football fan, especially every grown-up, especially every person who's a parent like myself, should be pushing back against this. If, for instance, he was making nasty tackles, getting up to mischief at weekends, fighting on the football pitch, saying disrespectful things, if it was known that he was hanging around with terrible groups of people, had bad political views, I'm just making some things up here, then call him out. Hold him to account. But none of these things are true. His football is barely being criticized, and it's his personality that is being attacked. And that, for me, has to be stopped, in my personal opinion. I'd love to get your views on everything we discussed today. Was Gary Neville right about the Manchester derby? Do we need to see more Needle? And if so, why did he call it out when Man City played Arsenal earlier on this season? And on Miles Lewis Skelly, do football fans have to do more to protect him? Because the mainstream media, they are not going to do it. Take care, goodbye, God bless, and I'll see you all again soon. Peace. I didn't press the end button.